Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Rob here for our BSPU call. So have some good stuff for you today. Apologize for last week. Had some technical issues. I tried to do live video right outside the United Nations. I ended up doing a short video. It wasn't live, but I did a video and then posted it later. So I want to go deep today into the topic of really connecting with influencers, world changers, what I would call and some others call your Dream 100. That is like ideal clients, corporations that you could perhaps consult for if you're a consultant, places that you could be a paid speaker, etc. So I want to talk a little bit about that because it's really a vital conversation, and a conversation where you can like quickly and powerfully advance your business if you do things the right way. So let me start from the opposite framework for just a moment and then move into what I want to share. One of my good friends and clients, Roddy Chong, is the lead violinist for Shania Twain, Celine Dion. He just played with Shania. Shania played up Stagecoach like 4 or 5 months ago. And also the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, really, really cool. They tour just like 60 days a year, but like every single day during the holiday season. Anyway, for the rest of the time, for the most part, he's off because Celine's not touring right now. Shania's not really touring right now. It's just TSO. So he is actually a really powerful speaker. Some of you may have seen him speak at different events. He spoke on Grant Cardone's stage just a couple of months ago to 8,500 people. He's spoken. He's going to speak next year at ClickFunnels, which will be 5,000-ish people. And the way Roddy gets his speaking engagements, now those he didn't get exactly that way. He got those through relationships, and also I've helped a little bit because of my relationship with Russell Brunson and ClickFunnels. But the way he gets his big corporate events is he actually cold calls. He gets on the telephone and he cold calls the conference organizer, the influencer, whoever it is, lets them know who he is, sends them some information, and then tries to build a relationship and work a deal. Now, does that work? You know, that still works. He just spoke at the Girl Scouts National Convention because of a cold call that he did to the Girl Scouts, and he gets paid really nice checks, typically in the $10,000 to $25,000 range for his speech. By the way, if you've never seen it, it's absolutely amazing. He plays the violin during it, you know, does some really cool entertainment pieces. It's really neat. What's the point of this? The point of it is what I told Roddy is that if he's successful now with all the hoops that he has to jump through with cold calling, then his book, which is due out in the next few months, is going to massively supercharge his business. Because imagine having every conversation with a potential, you know, corporation that you would consult for, or conference organizer that you could speak for, or potential client that you might do business with, and having every single one of those conversations framed by your best-selling book. And here's what I mean by that. You guys know I just got back from the United Nations and had an amazing time. You know, 3 months ago, if you told me that I'd be in the United Nations and watching two of my good friends and clients present to, you know, all the ambassadors to the UN, that 193 ambassadors to the UN would get a copy of their best-selling book, that their best-selling book would be redone with a new forward by the president of Mozambique. I would have said, it doesn't sound likely, but it's possible. And all of this happened in a period of 3 months. And it happened because of how the book framed the conversation with these potential influencers. So what Doug and John did, which is really cool, the authors of this particular book, which is exactly what I talk about on an ongoing basis. I'm not trying to take credit for it. I'm just saying this is what you need to be doing. They did it, and it worked. They sent copies of their books to influencers, to people that could make a difference in the raising of money for their charity, in the growth of their 501c3, and in putting them in front of even many, many more influencers who could help. What did they do? They sent a copy of their book to a very large NGO, non-government organization. In fact, it's the largest humanitarian organization in the world. That's a non-government agency, non-NGO, non-government organization. It's in India. It's called Japar Foot. And Japar Foot does prosthetic devices for the poorest people in the world. They're actually set up in 30 different countries outside of India as well as in India. And they've done 1.7 million prosthetic legs in their lifetime, which is incredible, especially if you consider in the United States that a prosthetic limb costs about, on average, on the low end, $15,000, on the high end, $75,000 to $100,000. And they do it for just $70, 70 US. Their technology is amazing. What they're doing is incredible worldwide. Well, I won't get into the details of the story because it's not really all that important for what you need to understand. But let's just say that what they're trying to do with this book and with their charity directly related to building a relationship with this largest humanitarian organization in the world. They sent a copy of their book. They then connected with the founder of this organization, and in a period of just a couple of weeks, were able to get funding. These are US-based people. They got funding for their charity from this Indian organization, right, that already is working with the poorest people in the world. And they got their direct support to help out not just the individual that's mentioned in this book, but to train that individual in the ways that they do prosthetic devices, and to set up an entire camp where 250 people will be given prosthetic limbs, and they raised $250,000. They did all of that by sending one copy of the book to the right person that was an influencer in their space. Now, furthermore, they took another step and they sent a copy of the book to the president of Mozambique. They got an audience, actually Douglas in particular, got an audience with the president of Mozambique because of the book and because of what they're trying to do. The book framed them, okay? That's what you need to understand. Look, you still need to be powerful and passionate and an expert and real, right? But if you're all of that, and you're trying to cold call, or you're trying to do it without the framing of you are an expert, you are a best-selling author, you are here on this hierarchy of I want to get to know you, I want to learn what it is that you're trying to do, and see if we potentially have some synergies together. If you do that and you send the book in advance of you, the book will do the heavy lifting for you. This is what I told Roddy. What Roddy needs to do when you're cold calling someone, you have to jump through all of these hoops. You have to get them to like you. You have to get them to trust you. You have to get them on the telephone in the first place, which is incredibly hard, right? Like, I have my gatekeepers on the other side of the audience, and salesmen cold call our office all the time to try to sell us printing and PR and all kinds of stuff, and I don't want to talk to any of them, right? I tell them, hey, if I don't have an appointment with someone, I don't want to talk to them. And anybody that, and I don't think I'm all that big of a deal. That's just, I don't want to fill up my day with somebody else's calendar agenda, right? In the same way, the people that can make a difference in your business and in your life, your potential customers, they're not going to accept cold calls, and you're probably not going to cold call them anyway, right? Let's be honest. I don't want you to do that. But if you were to do that, and it does work, that's the first thing I shared, you have to jump through all these hoops to get them to know you, like you, trust you, believe that you're an expert. Imagine, all you have to do is send a copy of your book in advance with a simple sticky note about what's applicable to them, what may be helpful to them, and then suggesting that you guys get on the telephone together to have a conversation, and it will do all the heavy lifting for you. If your book is well done, if it's beautifully crafted, if it's well done and the content is good, right? And you get it in front of your ideal client or influencer, it's going to do the work for you. And then from there, you have an opportunity, because you now are on the level of, well, I trust them. I believe that they're experts. Now, of course, the likability factor is important, or whatever else is important to you closing a deal, right? That there's a real synergy and you're working together, that you can really help them with their problems, whatever those things are that you have to get to anyway. All the heavy lifting is done. And that is, the trust is built, even though it's a cold connection, all because of your best-selling book. Now, of course, their book has been, a new foreword has been written by the president of Mozambique. They've now, of course, spoken in front of the United Nations, dozens of other ambassadors. Many of them actually stood up, and we have all of this on video, which is cool. They stood up, they talked about reading the book. The Iraqi ambassador to the United Nations stood up with tears in his eyes, talking about how the book, what the book meant to him, and that he wants their organization to come to into Iraq, because right now Iraq has a landmine for every citizen, meaning there are 25 million landmines in Iraq, which is horrible, horrible thought. And so many people are being maimed and hurt and killed because of those things. And this organization can help. They're going to have to raise millions of dollars. They've just gotten a start. But all of this came about because of the connections that they made by their best-selling book. So let me ask you this. Number one, if your book isn't done, get it done. Get it done. If it is done, are you using it to frame every conversation prior to you ever having a conversation or a second conversation with a potential client? If not, why not? Why are you speaking to people without your book doing the heavy lifting for you? You're making a mistake. Your book can do that for you if you only get it into the hands of the right people. I share a very simple strategy to get speaking engagements. Making a list of your top 100 opportunities, sending 5 books out a week, having an assistant follow up with a telephone call, because now you're framed as an expert, and then you doing the work necessary to take it from there, which is 70% of the way, 80% of the way, 60% of the way, whatever, all the way home to you getting a big check written to you for a speaking engagement or for a new client or whatever. Why would you ever have a second conversation with a client that didn't already put your best-selling book in their hands? Why would you ever do that? I tell my clients, look, if you have an initial conversation with someone and they're not ready to get started right away, in whatever it is that you do, what you should immediately do thereafter is pull out a copy of your book, find, based on your conversation with them and their needs, something applicable in your book, put a sticky note right on the front and send it to them and say, hey, John, great speaking to you last week. This is a copy of my best-selling book, which has been reviewed and is directly on the topic of what your need is. And in particular, from our conversation, page 123 speaks to some of those things. And you're directing them now to just 1 or 2 pages. What are they going to do? Of course, they're going to get that. They're going to turn to the page. They're going to read your amazing case study, which is somebody just like them. And your book is going to take them from maybe to, you know what, if I do this, I want to do this with you. Never have a conversation, a second conversation with somebody without getting a copy of your best-selling book in their hands. For just a few dollars, it will do all the heavy lifting for you. So I hope that's clear. I don't know if I can say it in another way. This is how we got in front of the president of Mozambique. This is how we got in front of the United Nations. This is how we got to the Indian consulate. This is how we raised $250,000 in 3 months. It was by getting the book in the hands of the right people, something that's high quality, and then taking it the rest of the way by, of course, your ability, your personality, your likability, and whatever it is that takes them, you know, from 75% over the finish line, you still have to do, but you don't have to do all the heavy lifting when you have a best-selling book. So with that said, what questions do you have? I want you to be doing this. I'm telling you, there is magic in this if you just do it. You've got to put your book into the hands of the right people. So Tiffany is asking a question. Rob, are you suggesting sending a hard copy of the book in advance of outreach? Doesn't have to be a hard copy, Tiffany, meaning hard cover. Hard copy, yes. Physical version is what I mean, right? A physical thing. That is what I am suggesting. I am not suggesting that you send an ebook. Do not do that. Not to your ideal client, not to a potential speaking engagement. No, that is not the best use of your time, energy, and money. Yes, this will cost you $4 to print and another $1 or $1.50 to ship. But this makes 10 times the impression of an ebook PDF that you would be sending to somebody. So no, do not send me an ebook. I don't want an ebook. But if you send me something, let me look at my desk, guys. Look at that. It's full of your books. It's full of them. I still go through them. I use them as examples. I mean, no one throws out a copy of your book. It's powerful. It makes a powerful impression on people. Everybody wants to write a book. Every CEO of a $100 million company wants to write a book, and he or she is like, wow, I mean, I just don't have time, or it's too difficult, or I don't know where to start. And if you've written a book, that means that you are positioned as an authority over the CEO of a $100 million company because you've done something that he or she has not done. So yes, get them the physical version. Doesn't have to be a hard cover, but it does need to be at least a soft cover, hard copy of the book itself. Deborah says, how many copies of your book at a time would you suggest printing in order to send to people? So I don't like having a garage full of books, Deborah. I don't think there's any need to do that. So, you need to think in terms of, who do you want to get the book in the hands of, and how quickly do you want to do that, and can you do it and follow up with people? If you can do more than 5 a week, then you should do more than 5 a week. But if you do 10 a week, then you only need like 50 copies hanging around every month. So you don't need to print more than a box of books, right? It doesn't need to be a huge expense for you. As you're printing these and using them, you're going to get results from them. Now, by the way, that $250,000 that was raised, that's UN speaking engagement, all that took several months. That did not happen overnight, right? They got to get the book. The relationship has to be furthered. Opportunities come up. So this is a 90-day period. Literally, though, that's pretty fast. Went from not knowing at all who these people were to speaking in front of the United Nations and having these partnerships in just 90 days. So it can happen fast, but just expect that there's a lag time between people receiving this, looking at it, building a relationship, and getting the influencer or connector that you want to deal with, to really know, like, and trust you. Tiffany's follow-up question, what do you suggest for self-promotion to get sales? What prospect list would make a difference for blind outreach for that? Magazine and news reporters. Okay, so these are two totally different conversations, Tiffany. So I'm not talking about selling the book. I'm not talking about getting this book to influencers to sell it, right? We gave away 193 copies of this book to all of the ambassadors of the United Nations. They didn't make a dime. My clients, Douglas and John, didn't make a dime on Florencia, not a dime of those 193. They came out of pocket to give those away. Why? Because they knew bigger checks were coming, like the $250,000 that they already raised in the first 3 months. Millions will follow because of how they've used their book. So I'm not talking about getting this to influencers that can help you sell it. Now, can you do that? Yes, but that question can only be answered by you. I don't know your topic. I don't know who your ideal client is. I don't know who the influencers are in your space. You have to know all of that. So if your only goal is to sell the book, then you need to start thinking in terms of, what are the blogs on my topic? What are the podcasts on my topic? Who are the influencers on my topic that you can get a copy of the book to, so that they can then begin promoting the book, right? That's the only way to do it. Hopefully, for you and for all of you that are listening, there's a better way to do it, meaning that you have a potential client that can write you a check for 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand, 100 grand. And your relationship that could be built and framed by a copy of your book can lead not to $1.93 in royalties, but it can lead to a $20,000 check or a $30,000 check. That to me is the big goal. Randy says, CreateSpace doesn't have price breaks. 1 book or 100 books is the same cost, FYI. So Randy, that's Randy, our operations manager here in the office, and he's just giving you some FYI right there. So what else we got? So let's see. Bill says, if I'm outside the USA, should I just drop ship from Amazon as a gift? Now, Bill, you can do that. Nothing wrong with that. But here's the only kind of fault or flaw in that. So remember what I said. If you've already spoken to somebody and, let's say that, I'm still in the financial services business, which I'm not. But let's say that I was, and I have my financial services book, and I spoke to a potential client that's worth $10,000 to my company. And we talked about a couple of things, and there were clearly some hangups, right? But I could relate the exact case study that this man or woman shared with me to a story that I have in my book. Then what I would do is I would put a sticky note on here, and I'd say, Bill, it was, great to speak to you, and your story really reminded me of Jennifer and her husband. And I share about Jennifer and her husband on page 123. Take a moment, read that, and then look forward to connecting with you next week. So the only problem with drop shipping it from Amazon as a gift is you can't do that, right? Now, you could send an email to them and that kind of thing, but there is something personal about putting a sticky note on it, even marking it up a little bit, signing it, etc. Now, with that said, if there's no way for you to ship it yourself, then at least get it in their hands by drop shipping it. Okay, at least do that. So I'm giving you the reasons to do it yourself, but if you can't do it yourself, get it in their hands some way. And if drop shipping is the way, then drop shipping is the way. Deborah says, does BSP help schedule book signing events for its authors? Hey, Deborah, we do not. And the reason we do not is this. I have clients that have done some book signing events, and we'll support it in any way we can. We'll support it on social media, etc. But when we focus on the promotion of the book, our focus is that, and our thinking is that I can get more people's attention in like 30 minutes on social media than you could with 6 book signing events across the state of California, right? So I'm trying to get people's attention to the book and attention to you using social media and digital marketing. Now, does that mean you should not do a book signing? No, it doesn't. I think you might have seen that that Erica, who we launched her book just last month, did a book signing because she wanted to do that for her local audience and for her local clients. And it was a massive success, and really cool things are going to come from that local thing that she did. But if you want to go to the Barnes & Noble in Modesto, California and do a book signing, don't do that. There's going to be like 3 people that show up. I mean, there's no reason to do that. You're better off focusing on using social media, using digital marketing. However, again, if you want to do something local and local to you and really focus locally on your local marketplace, your potential clients, that sort of thing, that's who you should have at your book signing event or your book launch event. And that's what your focus should be, using that. Otherwise, digital marketing can get more attention in 30 minutes than, visiting 6 Barnes and Nobles. So hopefully that makes sense. What else do you have for me? Wow, I hope you guys get this. I hope you just do it. If you do it, you're going to become a massive success. You are absolutely going to be a case study. And maybe, just maybe, by the way, on my own dime, I flew out to New York. I flew my videographer out to New York. I am creating this and producing this video for Douglas and John. Why? Because I'm so proud of their success. And obviously their success is a reflection of what we at BSP do. So if you have those kinds of successes, I may come out of pocket with 5 or 10 grand and really create some kind of cool documentary for you. But you have to do what they did to create that. If you're not willing to do what they did, then you're just going to cross your fingers and hope that the book does it automatically. And the book will do some things automatically. But the truth of the matter is there's nothing like putting your book in the hands of your potential clients, the influencers in your space, any media in your space, any conferences in your space. And I could go on and on and on with that list. Just get creative and start thinking about it for yourself. Hi, Kimberly. Kimberly says, is there any difference between hard and soft cover when you print the book? There is. Soft cover is really all that you need and suggest, and that's what we do. If you want to do a hard cover, which is the actual physical hard cover, then it's going to cost you probably 2 to 3 times as much as a soft cover version. You're also going to have to get a completely different kind of formatting and a different, you can't do that through CreateSpace. You have to do that through Ingram Spark. We can help you with that. There is an additional cost to what we normally do because it's a completely different set. It's a completely different platform. It's a completely different kind of formatting, etc. So, and that's not a bad idea to do, but it's not necessary. All that's necessary is the physical copy. The soft cover is perfect for that. Kimberly also says, and have you found that photos and diagrams help in readability? You know, yes and no. They're only helpful if they're necessary. And B, I would also suggest that you try to keep any photos in black and white, because once you go 4-color on the inside, your book goes from, you know, $3.50 or $4.50 to print up to $15, because 4-color printing on the interior, 4-color photos, is very, very expensive. So unless it is absolutely necessary, and in some cases it is for like maybe an interior designer or somebody that's into fashion or things like that, where there is color mixing and matching, then I understand if it's absolutely necessary. But if it's not, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you a lot. So I would avoid color photos. Hopefully that makes sense. Naomi says, does it cost more when you have a coiled binding? You know, I don't know what a coiled binding is, so forgive me. That is probably something for our formatting team. Maybe Sydney can answer something like that. Kimberly says, thanks, hadn't thought about the cost of 4-color printing. Yeah, it's expensive. Ken says, I did an estimate for a 300-page color book. It was $22 per copy. Black and white was $3.95. There you go. Thank you, Ken, for making my point. So it's not 3 times as expensive. In your case, it was $4 to $22, so 5+ times as expensive, 5.5 times more expensive. And I'm telling you, it doesn't make that big of a difference. So stick with black and white. Get and still the cover is, of course, color, and it's beautifully done, right? Beautiful quality. I also love matte on the cover. Everything used to be glossy, but matte is really in right now. It feels beautiful in your hands, so matte finish is great. But look, who cares? Get it into your ideal client's hands. Get it into influencers' hands. Get it into the hands of people that are conference participants or conference organizers, and then get them on the telephone. This will do the heavy lifting. The rest of it then can be done via your likability, and you'll take them over the finish line and make that person a client. Hopefully that's helpful. And hopefully I have inspired you, and that Doug and John have inspired you to do this. Take action. When you do, remarkable things will happen. No more questions. You guys are great. So have a great day, and I'll talk to you next week.